Good morning. I have no idea how many live feeds I have done, probably close to 1,000. And this one probably makes me about as nervous as any live feed topic I've ever talked about because it's just way too close to home. It's way too personal. So I apologize for that up front. I admit my nervousness to talk about this. And so I'm going to do it anyhow. I had decided yesterday, while I was doing the bucket talks yesterday, that I wasn't going to talk about type 1 diabetes anymore, even though this is Diabetic Awareness Month, and it is to make people aware of the type 1 diabetes and the challenges that go with that. But I kind of decided I wasn't going to do that again today. And then something happened as soon as I got off the live feed that made a huge difference and has made me decide I'm going to do this, and we're going to talk about it today. And this is what happened when yesterday, because this will illustrate the challenges that go with this. Yesterday, normal fashion, check my blood sugar, first thing that happens when I get up in the morning, and it was just right under 200, which is kind of normal for a morning. It's anywhere from 130 to 200, somewhere in that range right there, which is a pretty comfortable range for me, and I can live with that. I come in and do the live feed, don't do anything differently than any other time, including took my normal insulin injections and all of that kind of stuff. And when I finished the live feed, I felt very uncomfortable. Man, something's wrong. Went in and checked my blood sugar, was about that close to 500. Now, I've done nothing different. Yesterday, when I talked about the fact that those injections make your life different, I've done nothing different. I'm the most routine guy on the planet. I eat at the same restaurants. I ordered the same thing off the menu. I eat at the same times. I do everything as routine as I possibly can because it has been beneficial to me. And yesterday, in the span of about 2 hours, my blood sugar went from just under 200 to just under 500. That's not normal. People don't normally experience that. Before an hour had gone by, it was at the 500 mark. Nothing that I could do was bringing it down. So I'm being patient, just taking my time, and watched it by the evening. Time for me to do the next injection, time for me to eat the next meal. By evening, it was down to normal. Took the whole day for that to happen. Various times throughout the day, I was sick as could be because it was that high. Now, that doesn't always affect everybody in the same way, but for me, it affects me drastically because anytime I'm over 300, I don't feel good. I just flat don't feel good. And and don't feel good is I'm not functional when that happens. And yesterday was one of those bizarre days. No explanation for it. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing out of the routine. So that brings me to this, and this is what I want to talk about today, is that this is not normal. There is nothing that a person does that dictates this at all. I remember when I was diagnosed with diabetes, I was 15 years old, and that's been a long time ago, but people would say, well, do you normally eat a lot of sugar? Do you normally do that? They're trying to find an excuse for why I'm sick. Not an excuse. It wasn't what I did. It wasn't anything that I caused. Now, there are other kinds of diabetes where you can cause that. You can create that situation where that happens, but not this one. This is not your fault. That's the biggest challenge. Is that because we lump all of those things under the same banner, we try to make everybody responsible in the same way. That's not true. It is not true. Regardless of how that person got to where they are, that young person who you'll know this year that's 8 or 10 years old, diagnosed with diabetes, it's not their fault. It's not their parents' fault. It's not what their parents fed them. It's not what they ate. It wasn't their eating habit. Even though all of those things may have been bad, it's not their fault. And it's very important that we understand that it changes everything when we do. I was on my way back from a conference where I was speaking out with another man from another insurance company, and we were sharing 53 cities. And we got on the bus in Atlanta, Georgia to go to the airport, drop the rental car off, get on the bus. We're on our way to the airport. His phone goes off. He looks at his phone and goes, "Oh, man, this is cool." And I said, "What's up?" He said, "My son has been very involved as a high school student raising money for juvenile diabetes." That's what we called type 1 at that time, juvenile diabetes. And you'll still see it identified as JDFR, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. So my son's been very involved in raising funds for them, and he was the top philanthropist in high school, and he's being awarded an award by Peyton Manning in Washington, D.C. next month. We just found out. And I said, "That's really cool." I said, "That's really cool. I'm so glad your son's doing that." And I'll never forget what he did. He reached over and put his hand on my knee, and he said, "Eric, we're going to do everything we can to make this stop. It's going to be too late for you, but it won't be too late for somebody else. We're doing everything we can to put the brakes on this." That's the right kind of attitude. It's not, what are these kids doing wrong? How are we feeding them? What are their parents doing? It's none of that. This is, that brick wall fell over on top of them. And we can't stand there and say, "Well, you shouldn't have been walking on the sidewalk," right? This is a different kind of a disease. Don't blame the person who gets it. That's the first thing. Second thing is, be careful about advice. Man, for 25 years, I regretted going to eat at any place, family reunion, any place where we would have people gathered together because they would try to tell me what I could and couldn't eat. What gives them the right to tell me what to eat? You wouldn't do that to anyone else. You wouldn't say you can't eat that because you have blonde hair. You just don't do that. I agree, Don, and that's been about 15 years ago that young man won that award. I don't know where he's at today. I don't know. I've lost track of them and that whole thing that they were doing. I should probably find out. It would have been beneficial for this conversation today, but it is up to us, those of us who have survived. I'm now 47 years. 47? Yeah, 47 years, 48 years, something like that I've been doing this. I owe it to the next generation to talk about it. I owe it to warn people, don't blame the kid. Don't blame that person who has to walk around with that pin in their pocket all the time, and to keenly aware of the fact that things aren't right. I listened to a lady one day tell me what you should do, and those are words that should never leave your mouth, by the way. What you should do when you don't have any idea what I really should do, then don't tell me what you should do. Like I said, this is the reason why. This is the reason why I was so nervous, because I'm being brutally honest in this situation. Don't ever tell a type 1 diabetic what you should do. They've been being told what to do by people who have some control over that disease, the medical profession. They've been being told by them their whole life, "Don't eat this, stay away from that. When you feel this, do this, do that." Your whole life is controlled by that. Yesterday, Larry said, you have some control when you have type 2 diabetes. The disease has control of you when you have type 1. And that's a really clear definition of what that is. And so don't tell them what to do. Just don't do that. You get inside their head and it doesn't help. So this lady tells me what you need to do is this. You need to fix a meal and take it with you everywhere you go. Yeah. So I fix a sandwich. I take a piece of fruit. I put it in a box. I carry it with me everywhere I go. When do you eat that? Or do you just carry it around until it gets bad and you throw it out? So I asked her that question. She didn't have an answer for that. She said, "Well, that's what we did for our neighbor." I said, "How'd that turn out?" She said, "I don't know. He's dead." Yeah, don't be giving advice like that. Just avoid that. Don't get inside somebody's head, because you create conflict where there doesn't need to be any. I was very, very blessed. I had some great friends when I was in high school who understood They didn't know a thing about the disease. What they did know was they knew that they were going to let me be in charge. They weren't going to tell me what I could and couldn't eat. They weren't going to tell me when I could and could not eat. They weren't going to tell me none of that. What they were going to do instead is be supportive. It was the adults that failed me. We have I was taking my grandson on a tour of where I grew up at the last time I was with him, and we drove past where used to be the house that I lived in when I was growing up. And we'd built a barn, and I was supposed to roof that barn. And I got to the last sheet of tin. I was working by myself. I got the last sheet of tin. My blood sugar got low, and I fell off the barn. And a little bit later, my friend Jack Corliss pulled into the driveway, and Jack helped me. I was up and functional by then, but Jack helped me out. And when my dad came home, I said, "Dad, I'm sorry I didn't get that last sheet of tin on the roof." And he said, "Don't worry about it. We're going to leave it as a reminder to pay very careful attention to how you're doing. And I'm not ever going to put tin in that spot in the roof." Well, that property's changed hands 3 or 4 times. There's still an empty spot in that corner of that barn without a sheet of tin in there as a reminder to me, your health comes first. Your health comes first. I'm aware of that. The person with type 1 diabetes is keenly aware of that. They don't need a constant reminder. My dad did that as a visual reminder because he wanted to make sure I didn't get too absorbed in the job and forget about how important my health was. And that's been a reminder to me. I see that empty hole in that barn in my mind to this day. Pay careful attention, Eric. Don't get absorbed in things and get lost. So that's what I have to share with you today about type 1 diabetes. This is not a normal disease. It's not something that you can blame somebody for. It's not something you can blame something for. This takes control, and it does it in a way that defies explanation. And I don't know how many people really care. But for this month, I'm going to talk about it. Thank you for joining me today. If you have an opportunity, make sure, make a contribution, do something, share with somebody, care about somebody who has type 1 diabetes. I promise you they'll appreciate it.